Hey, welcome back to Joe's Motoventure. Today I've got a 2011 CVO Road Glide up on the lift. It's got the 110 obviously, but this is not a stock motor. Uh, the guy that owns this had the engine built, and I think it's 113 cubic inches now. I don't know all the details on the motor build, but I did see the dyno sheet from when it was built, and it's making a lot of power. I think he's sitting around 137 horsepower and 147 foot-pounds of torque, which is significant out of a twin cam. But all that to say, last year he had an issue. He has a noise coming from the clutch area, and basically when he takes off in first gear, there's this like crunching noise. So he had it fixed at a shop. I'm not going to name the shop or whatever. I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but they put a heavy duty clutch in it. They said that one of the clutch disc was broken, the ears that interface with the basket, and he's put less than 2,000 miles on it, and the noise is back. So he's asked me to look at it and just see what I can find. So we may come across the same issue, but I want to see if there's other issues that could be contributing to that. Because with that heavy duty clutch, it shouldn't be breaking. So we're going to dive into it. So I can't really get the noise on video with the sound of the exhaust and all. It just doesn't come through. And it only does it when it's cold. It's been rideable for him, but obviously he wants to be preventative and not cause further damage. So I'm going to open up the primary and see what I can find in here. See if I see anything. I'm just going to kind of go through everything inside of here. The noise is definitely coming from this area, so we'll see what we can figure out. And this isn't really going to be a how-to. It's going to be more of a just follow along as I dive into this and see what I can find. So I will go over what needs to be done to get in here, and then when we put everything back together, I'll go over torque specs and patterns and all that stuff. But like I said, it's not going to be a straight up how-to video. But to get started, we need to move this floorboard. Now he's got a little bit different mounts on here, so I can actually just loosen this screw up and swing this out of the way. We got to get the heel shifter off, and we've got to get this floorboard out of the way. So that's what I'm going to start with. I'm actually just going to take this all the way off. So obviously these the toe and heel shifter can be adjusted and mounted different ways on the splines here. So what I'm going to do is take a thin piece of tape and just lay it across between the two, because we don't need to remove the toe shifter, so it'll stay in place. And that way when I go to put this back together, I'll know exactly how this was lined up and be able to get it back how he liked it. I'll just put it there and then take my knife and cut it in between the two. And then I'll know how to put it back together. This bolt does have to come all the way out. There's a groove in this shaft that it sits in. And so even if you just loosen this, it looks like, a simple pinch bolt, but it does have to come all the way out. All right, so we're gonna get the primary draining. Just a 5/8 plug here. There is some metal in the plug, but nothing crazy. When you take that last bolt out of your derby cover, make sure you're holding on to it, because it'll just fall right off. So not all these bolts on the outer primary are the same length. So what I've done is just kind of drawn the primary here, poked a hole for every bolt, and as I take them out, I'll put them in place. That way I know where everything goes when it goes back together. All right, so I'm just looking for any abnormal wear here. The compensator seems to be tight. I don't see any weird wear on the teeth. The chain looks nice and clean. The tensioner doesn't have any weird wear. So we're going to go ahead and pull these clutch plates and see what that looks like inside. So this being a 2011, it has a hydraulic clutch, which is going to be a little bit different than a cable clutch. The cable clutches, you have an adjuster here. So this is actually a little bit simpler on this side of the bike. So just something to be aware of if you're working on a cable clutch bike. And then also, this is one of the places where you're going to find metric hardware. So these are 10 millimeter. Now everything here is under pressure a little bit. So when you're taking these off, just go slowly. I like to take them off evenly. So I'll just get them all loosened a little bit. And then just kind of work evenly around the plate. And then you'll get to a point where there's not really any pressure on them anymore, and you can just pull them out. So this is the push rod from the throwout bearing on the other side. So basically, as you pull your clutch in, it pushes on the end of this, which pushes out on that spring plate there and relaxes all the clutches. We want to try and reuse this if we can. It's only, like I said, it's only got about 2,000 miles on it. So there's nothing actually wrong with this clutch. It doesn't really make sense to replace it, but right now we're just kind of inspecting and see what we can find. So I'm going to pull these out in the order that they were in and make sure that they're laid out that way so that if we do reuse it, we can put it all back together the same way it came apart. So you've got friction plate and then a steel plate. A pick can be handy here to get in behind them. So far we're looking pretty good. I don't see any signs of like heat damage to that first steel plate there. The clutch plates look brand new, really. So I've got those out, and I mean, everything looks brand new. I don't see any signs of weird wear where the friction plates engage with the basket. I don't see any signs of wear where the steel plates engage with this inner piece here. So most everything here looks good, with the exception of when I spin this. If you watch this ring gear and watch the chain, see how much wiggle that has? So I have a feeling that the hub bearing is bad, which is what interfaces this inner hub to the basket itself. So I'm going to tear this thing down. Means we're going to have to pull the compensator off and the tensioner, and then this nut here. All right, so to start off, I went ahead and got a screwdriver in here so that I could get a little tension off the tensioner and then put the zip tie in. That way, when you take it apart, the tensioner doesn't expand even further. And then we're going to break the compensator bolt loose. So this is just a primary locking tool from Amazon. I actually got these in a 2-pack for about $15. I like this one because it's bright orange, so it's easy to not forget it in here. Most of them are black. There's also the primary locking bar that you can get that just goes between the teeth. But I think this will do the job. This is a Screaming Eagle compensator, which is an upgrade over factory. So you need a T70 Torx bit to break this loose. And I picked one up from AutoZone. It was like $8. And then this is torqued to 180 foot-pounds. So it's going to take a significant amount of force to get this broke loose. One thing I saw from a lot of complaints about this style primary locking tool is that they break. And so the company that sells this on Amazon specifically states to not put it down here on the bottom of the gears and instead to put it up top. So I'm not sure what difference it makes, but I'm going to try it that way and see how it works out. So for now, all we're going to do is break both of these loose, and then we'll get the tensioner out, and then we can take them the rest of the way out. All right, so I got that pretty well loose. This definitely held up. There's a couple teeth marks in it. I mean, it's plastic, so to be expected. So now, before we take that all the way out, we're going to go ahead and break this nut loose. So this is reverse thread, which means we're going to be turning it clockwise to break it loose. So we're going to put the locking tool up here this time. So now that I've got the clutch disc back in, I need to actually remove this centerpiece here. So there's just a snap ring. So pop that out. That way I can pull that piece out and have access for my socket to go in. All right, so I got the clutch put back together and the pressure plate tightened down. I got the push rod from the throwout bearing out. And I've got my locking tool in here. So now we can break this loose. Like I said earlier, it's 1 3/16 inches and it's backwards thread, so you need to go clockwise. You do not want to use an impact wrench on either of these two things because it can cause damage. Alright, I got that pretty loose. My zip tie came off the tensioner, so I'm going to have to redo that. I'm just going to let everything kind of sit there while I get the tensioner off, because it all kind of has to come out as one piece. Try and get all the loose pieces off that I can so I don't lose anything. And then you gotta pull all of this together. We got the compensator off, so set that aside. And just give this a wiggle. Slide it off. So this is a good time to look at your input shaft here on the transmission. Inspect it, make sure there's no abnormal wear. Same thing over here on the crankshaft. If you pull any of these parts off, make sure that you know what order they go in. Everything there looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and slide all this back on so I don't mess that up later. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pull the clutches back out of this so that I can look at that bearing a little bit better. The transmission shaft is spinning nice and smooth and straight. So, and I mean, the only thing that this basket and the ring gear and all is riding on is that bearing on the hub. So when we were spinning the hub earlier, it was spinning nice and straight because it's on the transmission shaft. So the fact that this was wobbling real bad, really the only thing that it could be is that hub bearing. So I don't know how well this will pick up on camera. But if I hold this in here and spin that hub, there's a kind of clicking noise happening. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get a hub bearing for this, and then we'll pick this up again tomorrow. I'll press the old bearing out and press the new bearing in, and then get it all back together. Alright, so we ended up ordering a new clutch basket. It came with a new bearing installed. That old clutch basket was just tore up, and so we're going to start fresh here. So the bearing's already in the basket. We have to install the hub into the bearing. I've got a large socket under here that's just making contact with that inner race on the bearing. I want to support that part so that when I'm pushing this this hub in, it's not pushing against the actual bearing or the balls inside the bearing. So you got to find something that just makes contact with that inner piece, has enough room for the hub to come through, obviously, so that you're not stressing the bearing. And then I've got a piece out of a ball joint press that just fits in here real nice, so that I'm pushing on the center of this. So I'm going to put a little dab of primary oil on this shaft here so it has a little bit of lubrication while it's sliding in. And I'm going to put a little bit on the bearing itself as well. So with the new basket and the new bearing, there's already the large snap ring on the basket side. So we just need to put the snap ring back on this hub shaft here. And like I said earlier, it's real flat on one side and it's got a little bit of a crown on the other. So the crown goes up or away from the bearing. Alright, so I just slid this on real quick just so I can kind of look at some things. And now when I spin this, I don't get that walk-in that I had with the old one. So I think we fixed our problem here. So now it's just going to be reassembly. I'm not going to make you watch me bolt everything together, but I will call out the specifics that you need to know. Put a little bit of blue Loctite on these tensioner bolts. And red Loctite on this clutch basket nut. And remember, that's reverse thread. And also red Loctite on compensator bolt. Alright, so I'm going to slide the clutches back in here. Normally you would soak these in oil, but since we're reusing these and they're like brand new still, they're already impregnated with oil, so we don't have to worry about that here. Like I said earlier, these 6 bolts are 10 millimeter. Should be the only metric size you need for this job. And when you run these in, you want to run them in evenly. So I'm just making them make contact with the surface here. And then I'll start just running them all in a little bit at a time, kind of in a star pattern. All right, so 70 to 100 inch-pounds. I like to kind of do it in stages, so I've got them all seated. I'm gonna go around in a star pattern at 70, and I'll probably turn up to like 90 and hit them again. And then because this is a spring plate, I'm gonna check them all one more time. Make sure we've got nice even pressure. Alright, so now that that's all together, we can torque down our tensioner bolts. Those are 15 to 19 foot-pounds. So I'm going to get rid of my zip ties. I added a second one in here for assembly. Just makes things a little bit easier. So now that I've got the clutch basket locked down here, I can go ahead and start torquing. Remember, this one is reverse thread, so we're going to turn it to the left to tighten. So to tighten this, we're going to put our locking tool here. This is 70 to 80 foot-pounds. Little note about torque wrenches. The digital ones are easy, right? You set them, you torque it down, and you do what you got to do. These, you know, your traditional click style, when you set your torque and you run the torque in, as soon as you're done, zero it back out. Having that spring in here under compression for long periods of time, especially like overnight, or you know, you let it sit for a couple weeks and you don't use it, it's going to throw your calibration off. And so that's a really important thing that a lot of people don't pay attention to, is resetting your torque wrench to zero. And you don't need to sit there and click on it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. One click is your torque and you're done. So now for the fun one. So the compensator bolt, if you have a factory compensator, like if you're not working on a Screaming Eagle bike, the torque sequence is 100 foot-pounds, then you back it off 360 degrees, and then 140 foot-pounds. This being a Screaming Eagle compensator, because it's a Screaming Eagle motor, it's 100 foot-pounds, back it off 360, and then 180 foot-pounds. We got to get our locking tool out of there. And get it over on this side. I'm going to break this back loose, so I'm going to have to get it, start turning and get this locked back up again on the other direction. All right, so I'm going to call that a quarter, half, 3/4, and a whole turn. Now we'll snug it back down with a regular ratchet, get our tool locked back in place. Now that I'm done with this torque wrench, I'm going to zero it back out like I was talking earlier and put it away. Pretty pleased with this locking tool. It's got, I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, it's got some gouges in it, but it's definitely holding up. It definitely did the job with, you know, 180 foot-pounds on it. So I'm very happy. And like I said, this was a 2-pack. and it was like $15-ish. And I like that they're bright orange because, you know, that's so easy to see. If you accidentally leave it in there, you know, if this was black and it was over here against this black gear, it'd be real easy to forget about it. All right, I'm gonna slide our push rod back in for the throw out bearing. It just has two little ears that go into the hub there. Super simple. All right, I've got a new outer primary gasket here. There's two dowels that you can slide this onto, one here and one here. That'll hold that in place. On my pattern here, I've looked up the torque sequence for this, so I'll put a still shot of this, and you just follow that torque sequence around. Alright, so we got those all torqued to spec and in the correct pattern. We're ready to fill this thing up. If you don't have one of these little funnels, they are handy as can be. You can get them from Harley, you can get them off Amazon. They're not very much money even at Harley, but it just sits in there, makes it super easy to fill this thing up. Otherwise you got to get like a skinny funnel and crush the end to try to get it down in there. So if you're going to do this more than once, it's well worth the investment. So on a normal scheduled maintenance, you would pull the drain plug, drain the fluid, put the plug back in, fill it back up. And that takes about 35 ounces. But when you do that, there's always going to be a little bit of oil left over. And so this is called a dry service, or, you know, essentially you took the outer primary off, you got all of the oil out of there. And so you need to compensate for what you normally wouldn't have gotten out of there. And so that is going to be 45 ounces. And so a normal quart of oil is 32. So this is a sealed quart. I'm going to go ahead and dump this whole thing in there, and then we'll have to add 13 more ounces. All right, they sell measuring cups specifically for this. This cup is 97 cents at Walmart. And so I don't really see the need for that. It's got ounces every 4 ounces, so obviously we're at 12 and 16. I'm going to shoot for a quarter of the way between those two. And then we'll add that to the primary. Alright, so I've got the oil in, got the derby cover all cleaned up, and the surface it mates to cleaned up. We're ready to put a new gasket on the derby cover. If you've been following my channel and you saw my tri-glide maintenance video, you'll know this trick already. But if you're new here, I'll go over it again. So these gaskets just sit in this groove, and as soon as you pick it up, they fall out. So a little trick to keep them in there is to get a little bit of axle grease, and you just want very small little dabs, and you just put a little dab. I like to go in about 4 spots, and it's such a small amount it's not going to affect the viscosity of the oil that's in there. And it's just enough that it will grab onto that gasket and hold it in place while you get everything bolted up. So as you can see, there's just a little bit of grease in those 4 spots. So now the gasket doesn't fall out. And when you tighten these down, it's just like doing lug nuts on a car. You want to go in a star pattern. And the torque spec on these is 84 to 108 inch-pounds. Alright, so now that I got all this back together, I need to throw the rear floorboard on, front floorboard, and the heel shifter. But this has gone on long enough, so I'm not going to bore y'all with that. Hopefully this takes care of this for this guy. The previous shop that worked on it, again, I'm not saying they did anything wrong. They did say they found a broken clutch disc in there, but I'm curious if there was more going on there and if this bearing issue was present at that time. So the clutches looked great in here. They've got less than 2,000 miles, so we went ahead and reused them. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.